Hello, 7th grade Talmudim. Today we're going to continue with Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, but in order to do that, I want to also show you a short video on Tzippori. Tzippori was a town in the Lower Galil. They've excavated much of it archaeologically. It's a stunning place to visit, and this is in fact a video of some of the highlights, which you see there, in no way all of them. It was called Tzippori, we think, because it was sat like a bird on the top of the hill, and there was a stunning command of all the surrounding areas from the top of the hill of Tzippori, although it did not participate in any of the wars. It did not participate in the Jewish rebellion against the Romans in the first century. It did not CE. It did not participate in the Bar Kokhba rebellion in the 2nd century CE. And that's why it remained a harmonious place for Jews and Romans to live side by side. And in fact, it was a very affluent city, as you will see in the video. Very rich city because it was at peace and the people got along. A rare instance of coexistence, which you find in our history. And come back to you at the end of the video. Please remember to take notes on the video, just like you would take on what I say.
It is one of the most famous archaeological sites in the Holy Land, which tells the story of the Jewish people during the Second Temple era and after its destruction of it. But Tzippori, or Sepphoris, is much more than that. We can see here layer upon layer of different civilizations, from the Iron Age to the Byzantine era.
It was considered to be the capital of the Galilee. It was a wealthy city where Jews and non-Jews lived.
This site, called the Nile House, is built on the typical architectural style of the Roman period. In its center, we can see a beautiful mosaic depicting scenes from the Nile River. Another mosaic features a scene with Amazons, women warriors. But perhaps the most impressive and famous mosaic is found on the top of the hill, in a place known as the Dionysus House.
So we are in the lavatory room of the house here. The fact that there is a lavatory inside the house, again, shows of the wealth of the people who lived here, because the simple people would just, go out to the fields and do what they do. So in here, we see the mosaic, and it says in Greek, Hagia, which means for health. In the center, you see what's known as the drinking competition. Dionysus is competing with Heracles, who can drink more. And you can see in the scene that Dionysus is lifting his cup upside down. He is done, he won, and Heracles is on the floor, drunk, completely wasted. Another thing that you cannot take your eyes out of is the Mona Lisa of Tzippori, a beautiful lady that, like the Mona Lisa, no matter where you look at her, it feels like she's looking back at you. The mosaic, the quality is unbelievable. It's made out of 1.5 million stones in 23 different colors, all from natural stones, and the high quality of this mosaic shows the wealth and the importance of the person that lived in this house.
Tzippori was perhaps a major urban and economic center for Jews and Romans during the 1st century CE. As opposed to other Jewish cities, Tzippori did not take part in the Great Jewish Revolt and therefore survived one of the biggest disasters in Jewish history.
To understand that, we need to go back to the year 4 BCE, the time that King Herod the Great dies. And at this point, a lot of Jews that gathered a lot of hate and anger because of his tyrannic regime start clashes. And clashes start here in Tzippori. And in order to put them down, the Roman ruler of Syria, Verus, comes here, puts that revolt down, puts the city on fire, causes terrible damage here, sell the people into slavery, and then about 70 years later, when the Great Revolt starts, we see that they kind of learned their lessons. They're not taking part in it this time.
After the Bar Kokhba revolt of the 2nd century, Tzippori continues to flourish. It became the home of the Sanhedrin, the Jewish administrative center. This is where the written collection of Jewish oral tradition the Mishnah was signed and where the great Jewish scholar Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi lived.
And the Mishnah included different discussions between rabbis of hundreds of years, and from all this time, and they discussed different issues like kosher, Shabbat, marriage, holidays. For hundreds of years, it was known as the oral Torah. They would memorize it and pass it from father to child, generation after generation, and they said, we're not going to write it down. We have only one written Torah, and this is the Tanakh, the Jewish Bible, and we don't want it to compete with it. And then comes a point when it's after the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem in the year 70, and the Jews are scattered all over the world, and there's a fear that it might be forgotten. And then Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi sits and writes it down, and from that moment it will become you can say the main textbook of Jewish communities around the world. So we can really see that Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi was a great reformer of the time. He legislated a lot of laws that were very open, very progressive. One interesting example is that we read about it in the Talmud that he offered to cancel the mourning days of Tisha B'Av and Yud Zayin B'Tammuz, where we are fasting up until today over the destruction of the temple.
Tzippori is also significant for Christians. According to late antiquity traditions, this is where Mary, mother of Jesus, was born. Perhaps a key to understanding the connection between Judaism and Christianity is its rituals. One of them is widespread here in Tzippori.
Mikveh is a Jewish ritual bath that Jews used to take in order to go through a spiritual transformation. Jews are doing it until today. It can be, the way it looks is a pool with water that comes from a natural source. So it can be rain, it can be a spring, it can be a river. And at that time, it was a very significant thing in the Jewish life. A very famous figure that we hear about is using it. He's using the Jordan River as the mikveh. John the Baptist, or in Hebrew, Yochanan, he is sitting by the Jordan River and he's welcoming all the people that are crossing the Jordan River to get baptized in order to purify themselves, because he's saying, get ready, redemption is coming, the Messiah is coming.
Tzippori may look like a place of contradictions, a city where Jews surrendered to the Roman Empire on the one hand, but also where one of the most important Jewish texts was born, where you can find a lavish synagogue next to a Roman compound. This complexity is perhaps a key to understanding the fascinating story of the entire area.
Now, in the video, there was a picture of this, so it didn't come out. I didn't focus on it so much. This is the floor of the shul in Tzippori, which is still there today. It's a beautiful, beautiful shul. They reconstructed it somewhat, and they do a beautiful, spectacular audio-visual show there. If you look at the picture, you will see that it's a picture of people, and we would never do that in a shul today. We would never put a picture of people in the shul today, yet this was inlaid on the floor in the shul. That's one interesting thing. B, it's a zodiac. A zodiac has to do with astrology and could be mistaken as something connected to Avodah Zarah and to horoscopes. That's another reason why we're not in the shul. And C, if you look at the Hebrew lettering, the Hebrew lettering is not ancient Hebrew, which we've seen from much of our studies. It is modern Hebrew. As you can see, there the word akrav for scorpion, and the other a little bit over here, the word maznaim for scales, to the constellations. Those words are readable by us because they're in already our modern form of Hebrew, which was in use at the time in Tzippori. So it's obvious that there were still at that point Jews who were very rich and somewhat assimilated if they made this kind of mosaic in their shul, which is skirts the lines of acceptability, if not go over the lines of acceptability. But great Tanoim lived, I don't know if they down in the shul, but great Tanoim lived in Tzippori, including Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, and obviously he had a base medrash there, and the Sanhedrin was there. And the Sanhedrin moved around during its final years in existence between different cities in the northern area of Israel in the Galil, between Usha and Shfar'am and Beit Sharim and Tzippori and Tveria. Tveria was where Rabbi Yehuda Nasi's final location from the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin continued there after he died. But so the Galil became now the center of Torah learning in the world. Even though, as I mentioned yesterday, the Reish Galusa had power and significance in Bavel, but the higher learning was here. So Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was the one who took all of the learning, which had been done over the course of centuries, and compiled it into the Shisha Sidrei Mishnah, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. Zorei Moed Noshim Nezikin Kachim Taros. And this is a synopsis of all of Torah Sheba'al Peh. The Chazal have a Masorah that all of Torah Sheba'al Peh is hinted in the Mishnah, even things which are not discussed till much later in the Gemara or other sources. The point of the statement Leika Midei Delo Remize Bo'araisa. There's nothing which is not hinted to in the Torah. It's taken not just to refer to Torah Sheba'al Peh, but also to Torah Sheba'al Peh. Leika Midei Delo Remiza Bo'araisa. So this is the Mishnah was carefully edited in order that there should be parameters which should be able to observe and draw conclusions, such as the most famous one being Machlokas V'Achar Stam Halacha Kastam. If you have a Machlokas in one Mishnah and in another Mishnah there is no Machlokas, only one opinion is brought, and it's the stomach of the Mishnah, meaning it's not attributed to any specific Tana or Tana, it's just mentioned as an opinion, then Halacha Kastam, we follow the Stam Mishnah in determining who to pass like in the preceding Mishnah where there was a Machlokas. That's a very famous principle. There's a principle in the Bavli, which is not in the Yerushalmi, but Bavli's principle Chisui Mechsera, that sometimes the Mishnah was written in such a short form that sometimes we are able to assume that something is missing and we put it in. That's called Chisui Mechsera. The Baal Yerushalmi does not hold that. Yerushalmi holds that the text of the Mishnah is almost like the Tanakh, and therefore we are not allowed to interpolate, meaning to put inside our own corrections to the text. Whatever you can derive, you derive. You don't try and you can't change the text of Mishnah by saying Chisui Mechsera. Along with the Mishnayos, which contains the nucleus of all of Torah Sheba'al Peh, there's a vast form of literature called the Tosefta. The Tosefta was compiled by two of Rabbi Yonassi's greatest talmidim. Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Hoshia. Okay, Rabbi Chia in particular was basically Rabbi Yonassi's right-hand man. He's a Tana, but he never appears in any Mishnayos. Appears in many Brises, many Gemaras, but already at that, since he's the next generation, there are a few people who still consider Tanoim from the next generation after Rabbi Yonassi who make it into the Mishnah, but almost nobody. And so the Rabbi Chia, Rabbi Yosha, both Tanoim, and there were several bridging people at the time who were all called Tanoim, but they did not make it in the Mishnah. They are mentioned in the Brises. Rabbi Chia is famous for the following story. For this, we're going to end our Zman for Pesach this year. Rabbi Hanina and Rabbi Chia were fighting with each other. Rabbi Hanina, obviously something learning, Hanina said, you're arguing with me. If the entire Torah was forgotten, I would be able to restore it with my great intellect and Torah and Torah tools to understand Torah. And I would make sure the Torah is returned to Am Yisrael. So Rabbi Chia said, you're arguing with me. I make sure the Torah is not forgotten from Israel. I go to cities. First, I plant fields, and in order to make rope, which is made from hemp, and I capture deer, from which to make parchment, and I capture the deer with that rope, and I write on 5 sets of parchment, Breish Lishmos Vayikra Bamidbar Dvarim, and I go to a city where people have not been learning. You should know there was a school system which was instituted in the time of Bayi Sheni by one of the Kohen Gedolim, Yoshua ben Gamla. But by this, after the Churban, of course, the system was wrecked. But Rabbi Chia basically restarted it. And he said, I would go to cities, and I would take 11 kids. To 5 of them, I would teach the Chamisha Chumshei Torah out of the klaf which I made, 1 klaf per kid. And for Shisha Sisha Mishnah, which still had to be which were still Baal Peh. They weren't written down, even though they were edited. They still weren't written down. Written down by the early Amoraim. He taught each one a Seder Mishnayos, and he said, now go and teach each other. Everybody should teach everybody what they learned. And this, Rabbi Yonasi said, Gedolim Maaseh Chia. Great are the deeds of Chia that he does, that Torah should not be forgotten. So obviously he was not just in the Beis Medrash, but he was outside educating people, kids to be B'nai Torah and Talmidei Chachamim. Rabbi Chia was also the uncle of one of the first great Amoraim, who we call Rav. That's not his name. But it's interesting, Rabbi Huda Nasi is called Rebbe. And Abba Aricha, which is the official name of Rav, Abba the Tall, he was very tall evidently, he's called Rav. And there's a difference, because Rebbe is a term which we give to Tanoim who have the true smicha. We also give a Amoraim who live in Eretz Yisrael got the true smicha. They're called Rebbe. Amoraim and Babel who didn't get the true smicha, they're called Rav. So it's as if at the pinnacle of the order of those called Rebbe is Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, and the pinnacle of the order of those called Rav is Rav, Abaricha. And we'll learn more about them and the bridge between the Tanoim and Amoraim in Mir Hashem next time we get together. In Mir Hashem, it should be in the school, and we should all be Zoicha this year, Lechol, Miazvachim and Psachim in the Beis HaMikdash. I want to mention one more thing which I forgot, which is I'm very proud of many of you who did tremendous amount of work and left me amazed and very proud, and you are, and a great yashar koyach to you, and may you go michayil l'chayil.